Hi everyone, it's Laura Volpes and today I'm back to share with you a summer themed card that I created with products from the latest LDRS Creative release. If you do enjoy this video, make sure to let me know with a thumbs up and a comment in the comment section down below, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to always stay up to date with the release of new videos. And now let's get started. As a first step, I did some die cutting and I cut some watercolor cardstock using these SLIMLINE corner scallop dies by LDRS Creative. I cut two different panels, and on the second one I did some additional die cutting to create the elements for my scene. I used the By the Sea and At the Beach die set, also by LDRS Creative, to create my sandy beach as well as my ocean waves, and then I started doing some ink blending to add color to all these panels. I started from the larger one, which will be the base for my scene as well as the panel where my sky will be, and there I am blending my LDRS Creative ink in the color Marina Madness. I am using a domed ink blending tool and I am starting from the edges and then moving my way towards the inner part of the panel to create a nice gradient effect and add some dimension to the panel itself. And then I moved on and did my ink blending on the ocean borders. For those I started with Tropical Sea, which is a beautiful teal color, and also in this case I am starting from the edges and blending my way towards the inside part of the panels. I'm not worrying too much about getting a super smooth blend. Actually, I think not having one will add some texture and some interest to these panels. I have 3 wave borders which I am inking up now, and then to add even more color to my ocean, I decided to come in with Pistachios Aplenty to add a little bit more of that mint hue to these ocean waves. I did it on all 3 panels and then I started ink blending my sandy beach. I started with Banana Cream Pie, which is a very bright yellow, so at this point the choice might look a little bit questionable. But to tone down my bright yellow, I went in with LDRS Creative in the color Iced Tea. This is a nice and warm brown, which toned down my bright base color and also added a little bit of shading. And I feel that the combination of these 2 inks was just the right color for my beach. If you do follow me, you know that I like to add droplets to create some interest on my ink blended backgrounds, and this time, instead of just using my inks, I decided to use some mica powders in shades of gold and copper. So I picked them up with my paintbrush and then I diluted them with water so that I could create these nice and shimmery droplets. And I think that this added a very fun touch to my beach. So since I was having so much fun adding sparkle to my project, I also used a white one or a silver one for my ocean waves as well as for my sky. But for the sky, I'm using a larger brush to create a little bit larger droplets. And here you can see the effect of these mica powders. It adds so much sparkle. I think it's a very beautiful touch to add to scene cards. At this point, I decided to go ahead and assemble my scene, so I am adhering all these panels to the base one where I have the sky, and I am slightly tucking them under, the previous one that I glued on, so that I can create a little bit of dimension in the scene. One thing that I am being careful about at this stage is not to glue the top part of all the borders so that I have enough room to tuck my images in, because that's something that I also like to do for my scene cards, since I think it adds a lot of dimension and interest to them. At this point, it was time to move on and start working on my images, and for today I'm going to combine several stamp sets. Some are part of the new release by LDRS Creative and some were previously released. I always enjoy mixing and matching different stamp sets because I think it's a lot of fun, and also it gives that extra mileage to your supplies so that you really feel you have loved them enough, and you can also shop for more with a bit of a clearer conscience. The sets that I'm using today are called Up the Rabbit Hole, Down the Rabbit Hole, Boardwalk Mice, and Explore and Discover, and everything is listed and linked in the description box down below, so if you're interested you can check everything out there. I stamped the images with Raven Hybrid ink by LDRS Creative on the same watercolor cardstock that I used for the base of my scene, and I'm using some watercolor markers today to color in all the images. The marker numbers are on screen, but I kept the coloring relatively easy. All that I'm doing is I'm adding my markers in the areas where I think the shadows will be, and then I'm using a water brush which is filled with clean clear water, and I am blending everything out to create a nice gradient and add a little bit of dimension to these images. And the fun bit about using watercolor markers to color is that you really need just one marker to create all the shades you need to add this nice dimension that I was talking about. I'm trying to keep my color palette nice and bright, and I'm adding some pinks as well as some teals that I'm going to bring in a moment that will also tie in the image with the ocean background that I created with my ink blending. The coloring, as I said, was very easy, also because most of the images are very small and the bottle was just a matter of adding a little bit of a light blue around the edges and blending it in. I'm not doing any realistic coloring of the glass, so as you can see, this went by really quickly and it was, as I said, very easy to do. Once the coloring was over, I die cut all the images with the coordinating dies, and one thing that I love about LDRS Creative dies is that they come already separated, so they don't have those little tabs that you have to snip off to separate your dies, which is something that I really enjoy not having to do. Once the images are all die cut, I can pop them out here from my watercolor cardstock sheet, and then I could go ahead and start adhering everything to my scene. I started from this water bottle here, and you can see that I cut off the bottom part of the image so that I could tuck it behind the waves. I'm also going to adhere one bunny there on the cork, and at this point I am not sure if he looks like he's having fun or is stranded on the bottle, but we'll fix that part later in the card making process. I also added the mice on this hot air balloon as well as a couple of clouds to fill in the sky area, and then I'm going to have one more bunny there having a picnic with his lovely carrots on the beach in this beautiful sunny day. I then worked on the base panel for my scene, and this is some more watercolor cardstock that I die cut with one of the other dies in that SLIMLINE set that I used for my scene. I ink blended some Tea-Coat Pink ink by LDRS Creative to add color to the panel, and then I'm going to work on my sentiment. For that I used the Love You die by LDRS Creative, and I die cut some white cardstock, and I'm adhering it letter by letter to my background using some liquid glue and my reverse tweezers, and you can see that I'm using the negative die cut to help me align all the letters and glue them nice and straight, and also with an even spacing. I'm trying to do this a little bit quickly because if any of the glue that I am adding behind my letter oozes out, I am going to basically adhere the whole panel to my scene, which is not what I want, so I'm trying to be a little bit swift. You don't have to rush, but just, don't linger on this too much. Once that is done, I can lift off the panel, making sure that the letters stay put. And then I also decided that I wanted to add one more image to fill in the scene and also give a little bit more context to that bunny that's sitting on the cork. So I found this one from the Up the Rabbit Hole stamp set was just perfect because it looks like he's diving, and to make this even more obvious I'm going to hand draw a couple of lines that make the image look like he's jumping off the corkscrew, and so we can imagine that the other bunny is next in line and maybe is dreading the jump a little bit. And here is a close-up look at the final result, a happy and bright summer scene card that is going to bring a smile to the recipient, I'm sure. And that's it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, subscribe and activate the notifications so that you are always up to date with the release of new content. And as always, thank you all so much for stopping by. Stay safe and healthy and have a great day.